Hello, this is an update from Saderingrad Publishing. We had just put out our Saderingrad Productions Ancient Wisdom series, The Gospel of Thomas, and it's for $8 on our website at lulu.com/spotlight slash Fratersh. That's FRATERSH with no spaces. And the thing that's neat is this book is getting distribution to Barnes and Noble and Amazon's websites, and that's a really neat thing. Another thing is, and I have spent literally all week working on this, taking literally almost no breaks. My company is bringing out a literal version of the Bible, and it uses the Sir Lancelot Brenton's Septuagint for the Old Testament. Let's see, Septuagint is the Greek Old Testament, and then the New Testament is Young's literal translation, with corrections, where there's points in the text where, like for example, they use sodomite, and there's that's not the term that's actually in the Greek. So, like for example, I would use Aduri Rames, where it says, see, the actual Greek term is male better. So the way it would say in the Dewey Rames is to not like lay with mankind, lay with men, or lay with mankind. Homosexuality. Modern Bibles get around the issue. They just say, homosexual. And, it gets straight to the point, but the problem is that's not what's in the original language. There is a different meaning. It's the same meaning, though. It is the same meaning. But we try to get to the more literal version of things. And I found Young's literal translation, though, is very interesting. It instead of focusing on words like eternity, and it looks at that Greek word and finds out it's more about an age than it is forever. So that really changes the dynamic of things. So with this Bible, I'm definitely thinking about the way to promote it, to at least show people, where it is and stuff, is to send while I'm working, to send copies to churches, we're for regardless of positive or negatives, somebody out there wants to buy a bunch for people in their congregation, they can do so. And then I got the Christ's words in red. I'll be honest with you, when I look for a Bible, I always look to see if it's got the words of Christ in red. It's just easier, and sometimes you can just kind of follow along with that, and it kind of speaks to you, and I love it. And I took the hard time just, comparing the text and making sure everything was in red, and that's there. There is also an Apocrypha section, and I know people could say, on the Protestant end, but the Apocrypha is not part of the Bible. It's actually what it's meant to be, is an appendix. If you actually listen to Martin Luther, and this is where I really get the idea for the whole thing, it's from Martin Luther. He's the one that started the whole Protestant Reformation. And what his idea was, like, he understood that the Apocrypha, the books that are in the Apocrypha, are not canon, they're not the Word of God, but they're historical. They're historical. They're old. They are very old books. Yes, they're not in Hebrew, so they don't match up, obviously, with the Hebrew books. But nonetheless, they should be in an appendix. And that's what he said. They should be in an appendix. That's what our Saderingrad little version has an appendix known as an apocrypha, and it tries to have books that are very popular and very epic. And I'm going to flat out say it. If someone has like a Catholic Bible, I'm sorry to tell you none of the apocrypha books from that are in ours. Mainly is because of room. This Bible does something that other Bibles usually don't actually have the problem of. Other Bibles, see, this is how you go about publishing a Bible. You go find a Bible publisher. You put down an order for 10,000 books, which can be a lot of money or it could be little money. It depends on who you are. And that's how it works. So you have to basically, it's very old school. You have to buy the stock. And then, yeah, you'll have your leather-bound Bibles and whatever different varieties. And yeah, they could be up to 2,000 pages. I mean, you imagine how big our apocryphal area would be if it was a 2,000-page book. But the one problem I have is, well, what happens if something happens to me since I'm a one-man business and there's no one left to make those kind of orders, so basically it's just this sort of rare book. It becomes limited edition. I don't like that. I like print on demand. And like at lulu.com is a print on demand site. Basically it doesn't, as long as they exist and as long as they decide that my stuff stays there, it's there forever. So the problem is they have a limit of 740 pages. And sometimes less depending on what you pick. So one would think, no way, you can't make a Bible out of 740 pages. Well, I did. I did, and there are concessions for doing that. There are things that, you have to understand, like you have to use, 8-point text. You have to, I could use the bigger books, but I wanted to try to put it in a 6x9 because then it's portable and it's like other Bibles. It's not a hardback, it's a paperback. But because it's print on demand, I don't have to be there. Lulu will make the book for me. So if a customer makes 10 copies, I don't have to order them. They do that all themselves. And it's really a neat thing. So there is some footnotes in this book. This is a first edition. I will tell you, I want to make a second edition, but it'll take years. I really want the first one to be out there for a while, and I'll probably obviously write down whatever negatives what people don't like about it, and try to figure out what the second edition can do to remedy some of those problems. And I know one thing I would like to do for the second edition, which was a problem I didn't understand fully until I got to the end of the project of the first edition of this Bible, is there's a problem with headers with Microsoft Word. There's a trick to do them. And it's really advised to do this in the beginning of a project. Like, let's say you get one page done. What you need to do is you need to do a page break, and then how do you do it? Then that's when you can put down a unique header. Well, the problem is if you already have like a 740 page Bible pretty much already put down, it really messes it up. It really messes everything up. It will push the text off a whole page, making a whole blank page. Then you can't push it back up into it, and it gets complicated. Microsoft Word is, you sort of become a master of dealing with glitches. It's funny, this channel used to be about video games, and it's kind of funny how, in a way, that kind of continues on a little bit with this, see, with dealing with the struggles of Microsoft Word. But yeah, so that is a negative of this book. I will admit, heads up, flat out, there is not headers, and it's just a flaw that is just like one of those lesson things. I think all first editions got some kind of flaws with them. It's just no way to do it perfect on the first run. The second time, that's when you take your time and you look at everything. Okay, so back to the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha, I aim to use very fascinating text. I didn't decide to go, oh, I'm going to have this little letter, I'm going to have this little paragraph, because it's just not put anywhere. It's apocryphal, but no, I wanted something. I wanted deep, fascinating, an apocrypha, because the reality is, guys, with second editions, third editions, fourth editions, I'm never changing the books. The books I've got right now in this, that's never changing. Unless something does happen where I decide later on when I'm older and I go, you know what, I'll take a shot. I'll make a leather-bound Bible. I got the money. This publisher is really into this idea. Let's do this. So, the first book that's in the apocryphal area is the Gospel of Thomas, which is a gospel that came later, and I think it was mostly from the Coptic area, and it was like 300s, I think it came from. And it deals with just sayings of Jesus. I think it's a little bit Gnostic, but from what I've seen it's definitely a little deeper philosophically, but it's not quite Gnostic. I mean, the one thing I will tell you when I chose the Apocrypha is I tried to choose a wide degree of books that showed the variations of early Christian societies and the struggles the apostles had with this. It was a lot of variation. And a lot of times I'll even have a disclaimer on a book to just kind of show, that this isn't like, this Bible isn't going, hey, read this and it'll change you. No, this is to give you the idea of a belief system. When you go to that apocryphal area, it's to show you these things from a historical standpoint. We want you to go in the Old New Testament for the spiritual stuff, for the real profound Word of God. But understand, when you go to the Apocrypha, there could still be some of that in there, but there's no way to prove that, and it's really just for history. So you have the Gospel of Thomas. You've got the Apocalypse. You got the Book of Enoch. It's not the complete Book of Enoch. I have about 50% of the Book of Enoch, and basically what that does is it covers the journey of Enoch dealing with these fallen angels. He goes through heaven and hell. So basically you get that whole trip, but then it cuts off basically where the parables begin, because it's actually a very long book, and then you get like fragments of Noah, and so you get like a good chunk of it. The Book of Enoch's everywhere. You can read it for free on Sacred Text. So I wanted enough of it in there because I still think it's a really neat book, and it's a very old book too. I mean, if you wanted to be honest, I could argue that if there was something that could be one of these books could be the Word of God, I definitely think this one. But I can't prove that. So it's there. I have gotten criticism for the Ethiopic Bible because people feel it shouldn't be in there. but I was trying to capture the canon of the Ethiopic Orthodox Church. And the Ethiopic Church has that in their bigger canon. And I just wanted to capture that. And it's a very very successful book. And but with this new Bible, so now we got those two books. We got the Apocalypse of Peter. Now, this book at first I didn't want to put it in. I thought it was too much damnation. I thought it was just too wickedly, too much damnation. But then I think what the amazing thing this book does is here's the kicker, guys. Everybody who goes to hell in this book gets redeemed, meaning they get eventually the prayers of the righteous in heaven convince God to pull somebody out of hell. The idea that they've done their time, and they've learned their lesson, and with the idea that in the end everyone kneels their knee to God. It's a beautiful idea. It's a very neat book, but it wasn't easy trying to find a version where it's nice and complete. That's the one downside when you get into this Apocrypha stuff. It's some books aren't all real clean and neat. Sometimes they're fragmented. And if they're too fragmented, you can't put them in. They're too broken up, So you have those three. Now is when things get a little controversial. Is you have the Apocryphon of John. Now you would say, why would you put this book in? It's a Gnostic book. And the reason I put it in is because I wanted to basically show what the apostles, like what they were dealing with these Gnostics. And I wanted to show you what their belief system is. Because the Apocryphon of John lays it all out. And, at one point I actually did want to put in Irenaeus, his rant against the Gnostics is this really good rant. He really tears them apart. But I put the book in because it was just very, very fascinating. So that's kind of like the goal of this Apocrypha. It's just like, it doesn't slow down. It doesn't it doesn't give you just some Deuterocanon book. It actually tries to focus on merely epic books. And then finally at last you have the Gospel of Nicodemus. And why that book is very interesting. I learned that book because I remember a show on the History Channel called Banned from the Bible. And I really remember that Gospel of Nicodemus. And what it's about is it tells a story about how when Jesus went into Sheol, known as hell, and after he was crucified because he went there to get all the righteous people out of hell. Because what it is in Old Testament times, the afterlife was known as Sheol or hell. And it's interesting how the Greeks had hell as well. And what hell is, hell is not all like a wicked place of fire for everybody. There is a wicked part, the place for the wicked. That's for the wicked. But there is an actual paradise section for, those, those that are righteous. So he comes down there to take them out of there and to bring them into heaven, which had been locked down apparently. And so amongst these five, it makes a very interesting Apocrypha. And again, I really did everything you possibly could consider the constraints of this. I mean, I remember, I think what inspired me to do this is someone had put a King James Bible in PDF under 740 pages, and I kind of went, whoa, somebody actually pulled that off. And that gave me the idea of doing this. And it all happened just now. Literally what happened was I got sick, and then right afterwards, something just like kicked me in the pants, and I was just working on this thing and working on this thing and just throwing it down. And literally, this was something that had been sitting in the back of my head maybe for years, but I always assumed somebody else would do it. You would always have people on YouTube in the Christian area constantly saying how they wanted to bring out this Bible, they wanted to do this, but they never do it. They never would do it, And I'm sure they were afraid about having to go to a publisher and put out a 2,000-page book. Well, I did it on print on demand, and I've taken a chance. The book isn't out yet. I have got a paperback version heading my way to see if it turned out all right. I've actually never officially ever put out a 6x9 book. I tried to do it once. I didn't understand how the text turns out. How this text turns out when you put it into a smaller format like that. It looked terrible. I felt like I wasted my money. I was so mad. But I now understand it much better. And it should turn out all right. It should. Okay, so that's pretty much it to this update. Probably in a couple weeks, I'll go ahead and launch this book and then start sending it out to churches and whatever groups. Well, see you then, guys.